Hi there, and good afternoon. I'm John.
I'm Zen. And I'm Julie.
We're with C Nation, and you are tuned in to the 50 Days of Cannabis podcast, where we examine the cannabis laws in each of the 50 states.
Oh, hold on, John. You missed one.
I did. The District of Columbia is also included in this. We just thought 50 days sounded a little better than 51. Today we're looking at the cannabis laws in Indiana. The Hoosier State is pretty much middle of the road when it comes to its prosecution of cannabis offenses. It encourages drug rehabilitation, and its financial penalties, all things being equal, are far from the harshest. Tell us all about the possession laws in the Hoosier State, Zen.
The possession of any amount of cannabis in Indiana is a misdemeanor, up to 6 months in jail and a fine of $1,000.
Ouch.
On a first offense, this can be discharged upon the completion of a court-ordered drug class or the successful completion of probation without any subsequent brushes with the law.
Yeah, I like that. Drug court's good, especially for first-timers.
Give you an option. Well, some help.
Yeah.
Yep. Possession of less than 30 grams and a prior drug charge is also a misdemeanor, up to a year in jail and a max fine of $5,000.
Ouch.
Possession of more than 30 grams and a prior drug charge is a felony, between 6 months and 2.5 years behind bars, and a max fine of $10,000.
Oh, wow.
It's so weird they go with these like 30 grams. What's wrong with 28, which is what?
But they're not usually the zip, which is an ounce.
It's weird. I mean, we've seen this before. 30 ounces here and there.
States being very
28 and a half in California.
Yeah, very specific in their terminology for no reason at all.
So, what have they got going medically in the Hoosier State?
Well, they passed a medical CBD law for the treatment of epilepsy or other conditions a physician recommends.
So it's one of those bare minimum kind of laws. They don't produce
High
it. You
CBD,
can't,
low THC.
Yeah. Go find it somewhere else because there's no place to grow it, make it, etc. in the state. It's the same thing as we have here in Utah and some other states too.
Well, as far as growing in the state, in 2014, Senate Bill 357 authorized state regulators to begin the process of licensing farmers to grow hemp commercially.
See, that's good. Indiana has a lot of farmland, and hemp is good for the soil. It amends the soil. It really helps it. Plus, there's 1,000,001 uses for industrial hemp. I mean, textiles and clothing and food and all sorts of stuff. They do press it for some of these CBD extracts. And so good on Indiana for having an industrial hemp program. But I'll bet it gets worse for them growers and them sellers, doesn't it?
Oh, yes, it does. Which it usually does.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. There's still a distribution of less than 30 grams of cannabis. Just a little over 1 ounce is a misdemeanor. It's punishable up to 1 year in jail at a maximum fine of $5,000. The sale or distribution of any amount of cannabis exceeding 30 grams is a felony, punishable between 6 months and 6 years behind bars. Financial penalties ranging $5,000 to $10,000.
Yikes.
Yeah, so it's pretty harsh.
It is pretty harsh, but man, a lot of states for those same charges have an extra zero on the end of that. $50,000, $100,000, $200,000.
Well, the growers can expect the exact same laws I just mentioned in the distributions because that's what they take the confiscated plant and they weigh it and that's what they get. So they can be looking at the same laws of distribution. So this is where we kind of even get more serious in regards to school zones.
We do, and Indiana is a state that has been after their school zone laws, which they eventually changed to drug-free zone laws, like since the 70s, and they've periodically updated them. And each time that they've updated their laws, they've made them a little stricter, a little broader. They've included more areas. Originally, it was just a school zone like most states. And then they realized, hey, kids go places after school. They go to arcades, they go to swimming pools, they go to public parks, they go places. And so they started to include a lot of these other areas in their drug-free zone laws. And we see that in most states, public housing areas, daycare centers, things like that. Those are all included in Indiana at roughly 1,000 feet. But I did notice that they've got a section where the drug-free zone drops right down to 100 feet. And that's like a public swimming pool and a public school and, daycare centers and whatnot, 100 feet. Okay, fair enough. So what it really comes down to in Indiana is a 1-degree enhancement for any charge that happens in a school zone. They don't make their laws really complicated. They don't put a second felony on for the school zone. They just enhance whatever charges they were going to give you already. And in Indiana, like we see in a lot of states, it doesn't include possession. It's more sales and distribution, cultivation, of course. So that's it. And not terrible, but still pretty serious. And
Being an adult.
Yeah, for sure. I want to just include one more thing here, because we talk about this, but we haven't specifically ever just drawn attention to it, that school zones have really morphed into these new areas called drug-free zones. And listeners, this is for your benefit so that you are informed and so that you are safe. Just be aware that most states now include areas in addition to just schools, and you need to be aware. If your brain says, hey, I wonder if there's any kids over at that Boys and Girls Club and I should keep my marijuana away from them. Yeah, you should. So just be aware, pretty much across the country anymore, that school zones have morphed into drug-free zones, and they include an awful lot of places. The trade-off for a lot of states has been, okay, if you've got, a small amount in your pocket, we don't care too much about that. Just move on through. Yeah, you start pulling it out, you start doing those things. So anyway, be aware that more places are now included in states' drug-free zone laws. For a more comprehensive look at the cannabis laws in Indiana, please visit us at cnation.com and click on the state-by-state link.
Remember, you have rights if you're arrested for any cannabis-related reasons. You have the constitutional right to remain silent until your attorney is present. If you don't have an attorney, ask for one.
Holla.
This is Zen
And Julie.
And John.
with CNation, bringing you a snapshot of the cannabis laws in Indiana. Be safe.
Stay informed!
Yeah, what they said. The 50 Days of Cannabis podcast is a copyrighted production of the South American Gold Corporation.
We appreciate your likes and shares on social media.
Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at CNation Channel.